When my older sister and I decided to explore an old, abandoned building in my hometown, I honestly wasn't scared at all. My sister is a dedicated believer in all things paranormal. Ghosts, demons, the whole nine yards. I, on the other hand, am a big-time skeptic. However, I do enjoy freaking myself out, so I took it upon myself to find some kind of abandoned building to explore, which is something I had been wanting to do for a while. I don't know what I was expecting going into this building. Maybe we'd find some cool graffiti or remnants of the previous owners. What I didn't expect was the horrid sense of dread I felt when I first stepped foot into the decrepit, decaying, two-story brick house. As we walked around, our flashlights, our only source of light in the dark, dead night, we saw things in the corner of our eyes, but they were gone before we could fully turn our head to see them. It always seemed as if there was a third pair of footsteps that would continue to walk for a second after we would stop, curious as to who may be behind us. What I really didn't expect was to run out of the house, a scream escaping my lips as I felt a strong gust of wind in my hair as a voice whispered my name right into my ear. I was planning on staying with my sister that night, but I couldn't even stand the thought of staying in the same town as whatever was back in that house. I lived the next town over, so I decided to go home. As I pulled out of my sister's driveway, I reached down to turn on the radio, deciding that music is the best thing to calm me down right now. However, as it turned on, all there was static before shutting off completely. That's odd, but I do drive an almost 20-year-old car, so it's likely just wiring issues. I started my 45-minute drive to my house, and I grew weary of the long stretches of dark highways that I would be driving on. I hate living in the country. I was soon out of the bright lights of the city and into the rural areas that linked the highway I had to drive on for more than half an hour. As I reached my first stretch of darkness, there was an eerie no other cars around. Seeing as though it was a Saturday night, the absence of cars was odd, but not extremely uncommon. As I said, I live in the country, so there's not a lot of people out here. I snapped out of my thoughts as I heard a clicking noise. Suddenly, I was surrounded by darkness as my headlights clicked off. I felt a sense of panic set in as I immediately reached out and turned my headlights back on. My heart raced as I collected myself. I was about 10 minutes into my drive, and nothing else odd had happened. Like I said, my car is rather old, so I just summed everything up to be wiring issues that I would have to check out in the morning. However, I started feeling the same sense of dread that I got back in an abandoned house. I decided that I should call someone to take my mind off everything. I grabbed my phone, and without looking, I dialed my best friend, something I often do on my drive home from my sister's. However, after a few rings, the phone cut off. I at first got upset, thinking that my best friend had just hung up on me. When I looked down on my phone, though, I realized I was going through the section of the highway that didn't have any cell phone service. Again, I grew nervous as I white-knuckled the steering wheel, allowing my foot to drop a bit more on the gas pedal, wanting to get home as fast as possible. When I thought I had service again, I decided to try and call my best friend one more time. I grabbed my phone in my right hand, keeping the left firm on the steering wheel. However, I began to feel the wheel moving under my hand as if it was pulling to the right. I dropped my phone back into the cup holder and put both hands on the wheel. I felt the wheel continuing to move under my hands despite my hardest efforts to pull it the other way. I looked and saw that I was riding the shoulder of the highway, my car moving almost be off the road. I let out a scream, horrified as to what could possibly be trying to pull my car off the road. Suddenly, the wheel was released, and I almost wrecked trying to overcorrect myself to get back onto the road. I was crying at this point, so filled with fear that I could hardly see straight. I wanted desperately to pull over, but I was in the middle of nowhere. When I hit a patch of road that was illuminated by street lamps, I checked my rearview mirror out of habit. I froze. There, sitting in my back seat, was the most evil face I could imagine, with its pitch-black skin, over-exaggerated smile, and wide, sunken eyes. It was paralyzing. I let out the most blood-curdling scream as my headlights flickered on and off and my radio turned on to static as loud as it could go. I felt the steering wheel pulling to the side again. The last thing I remember seeing through the windshield was my car getting closer and closer to the light pole.